Hello, everyone. Welcome to another CIRF report, a collective influence report and forecast for the week of, the last week in May 2023. And it's to the day. So when we start the next CIRF report, it will be the first day of June. There's some big energies here, as always, as you become accustomed to, more than likely, unfortunately. But it's not all negative. And that's the positive note I have, even though there's a ton of squares here. There are some opportunities. And if you know this energy, there's some definite things we're going to get out of that, mainly sharpening skill sets for ego and also seeing, articulating, experiencing a very positive future, because we know that the importance of that is that we create whatever we're thinking. Starts with the thinking. And there's ways to accentuate that creative process. We'll talk about all of that. First and foremost, we have lots of squares. The biggest one being Sun square Saturn. So ego maybe gets a bubble bursting. This is the worst case. Positive thing here is that ego can be humbled to strengthen some skill sets that has been lacking in the past with challenges from Saturn. So these won't just be haphazard hurdles that Saturn, the malefic, throws at you. It'll be very well tuned to your greater soul's path. And there will be a rhyme or reason for hardships. And then that's a matter of perspective too. You don't always have to see hardship as hardship. You can see them as opportunities as well. So part of our perception is in here, but Sun will feel more restricted, more limited, contracting. And we know what kind of feeling that has or could have. It's not a pleasant feeling, let's just say that. But there are opportunities there. Same thing with Jupiter and Mercury, both of them together representing the whole mind, because you got wise mind, optimistic, higher level thinking is Jupiter, and lower, the 3D reality, logic, rationalization, communication, that's all Mercury. So you got the whole mind here conjunct over the North Node. Mercury is going to make it away from Jupiter to not be considered conjunct anymore, and while doing so will be out of a T-square. But both in the beginning of our week, we are looking at a T-square both on Mercury and Jupiter. Eventually, Mercury will drop off, be conjunct with Uranus, and leaving Jupiter into a slow disintegrating T-square. And we'll talk about that in an extent. That's the mental futures, because that's over the North Node. Even Mercury conjoining with Uranus is a futuristic sort of a mindset as well. So it's all future in Taurus. Sun is in Gemini. And then what's the I-Ching say? Difficulty at the beginning? Well, obviously all the squares, T-squares, yes, especially for ego, especially for thoughts. But the difficulty at the beginning is also a follow-on of Darkening of the Light last week. Darkening of the Light energy from the I-Ching was talking metaphorically about the new moon. We talked about that in Taurus. And now the lunar stage is difficulty at the beginning. Not that the lunar stage is always difficult, but because it is the beginning stage of our lunar aspect, waxing crescent, as we get into the first quarter moon. And we have a lot of squares. So there's conflicted energy while we're having this newish lunar phase. And then the Dreambot says Mercury/Gemini. So a lot of thinking in there and assessing and, judging, logic. And then we have fine dining. So that's a very Taurus thing. Taurus is still remnants of Mercury and Jupiter, Uranus, North Node, etc., all still in Taurus. And that's more future-oriented, practical, experiencing things with mind. It's a lot there, but all that's Uranus and the Sun into Gemini squaring off to Saturn. All right, that's our summary. It's probably a little bit too much detailed. One last thing, or two, maybe two last things. The last day of our CIRF week, the 31st of May, we're going to be crossing over into June with a Grand Cross. If you've never heard of a Grand Cross before, we will iron that one out. It's over the North Node, South Node, Moon, and Jupiter, and Pluto and Mars. So we got that to look forward to. And this, what's this? Just, I don't know if this interests anybody, but this alignment with Jupiter, T square on Jupiter and Sun and Saturn, all these squares represent a symbol A. We know, some of us, that the symbols are very important to our language and understanding of the influences. All right, so that's our overview slide. We're going to nail down all the different energies, so you'll know hopefully what to expect in terms of feeling. And then we're going to shift over to the solution and talk about what to do about it, what the best behaviors are. And so let's get started. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you will find energy reports here weekly. So look on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, and we have over on Rumble and BitChute other subscribe opportunities or channels on all three of those, as well as look down in the show notes for Telegram channel if you're interested in that. All right, so our winner of the best comment last week is a three-way tie with Mario, Kim, and Milos. Congratulations and shout out to all three of you. And these I would like to respond to really quickly. Mario says Sidereal Astrology is where planets and constellations are at, as seen. I will interject more, as seen from Earth. So you're standing outside looking up into the sky. That is Sidereal Astrology. And that is correct. It's not tropical, but we do use both. And our intro video will spell that out for any of you who are confused by, wait, I thought you couldn't have sidereal and tropical together. Well, we do. And so Kim says, when can we expect some sort of reprieve from the energy? I feel like my head is going to explode, and I know a lot of you are feeling this, so I went ahead and looked into the future, and I expect June to be energetically probably the hardest climax of the energy, the most conflicted, probably the hardest energy faced in probably 2023 is going to be generically or generally all of June. And then August is somewhat conflicted still. So you have some squares, some looser squares, but the most grounded. So probably like a pause in the conflicted energies is looking around more August. And then very grounded temporarily at the end of October as we get into the 1st of November, all of 2023. And obviously we'll do much more breakdowns and specifics in these weekly CIRF reports. All right, let's talk about the DreamBot real quick. And it is interesting. I haven't spent too much time on the top word called mood. The DreamBot, or people's dreams, or the collective unconscious, infatuated with the word mood because we had this last week as number one, and for some reason it is escalating. It's increasing exponentially, the word mood. So that's a very kind of a Cancer-esque word. But there really wasn't a whole lot of direct support for the Cancer kind of other than care. And other than that, it was much more of the mood of the experience. So I went the experience route. Not that Taurus are all moody, but I'm thinking that this is the overall meme in the blue arrows. So anyway, could be wrong, could be right. And then the red arrows is thinking. Now, good news is woke is taking a hit in terms of its It's not going down again, but it is, like I said, consolidating and making more of a new baseline. So you're going to see woke starting to go down, it looks like, in the collective unconscious. All right. Now let's get into the astrology. First, an overview. And we are in the last week, so the two black lines, you can barely see the right black vertical line. But we have a lot of things that we talked about before. So Jupiter and Pluto in a square. These are two pretty slower planets, further out planets. So that square you can see covers all of May. And then Mars square Jupiter is all of May as well. Although these are on the waning side of that energy, still somewhat conflicted. The one I'm looking forward to is going to be into next CIRF week. So June 4th is when Mercury and Uranus goes into a perfect square alignment. Conjunct alignment in Taurus. And we have the sun in Gemini. We still have that power struggle between Mars and Pluto, and a few sextiles and trines to talk about. In the overview, this is a reminder that we're in the eclipse of Aries, and in service of the most recent new moon was Taurus. So we're right here in this diagram where the Taurus lunar cycle is in service of developing more Aries for you, more self-understanding, more self-acceptance, and more warrior. Maybe you'll be able to stand up for yourself, knowing better who you are. The theme music is Atreyu's Warrior. I am the warrior. That's the 6-month cycle that we're on as we approach the new eclipse in October 14th in Libra. All right, let's drill down day by day. And we have the forward-looking T-squares. That's what we talked about extensively last week, Mercury and Jupiter over the North Node. You can see a loose conjunction with Mercury in the North Node, but technically still there. Still technically Mercury conjunct Jupiter. So it's the whole mind over the North Node, peering into the future, tension against Mars in a square, and the waxing crescent moon in Leo. So a lot of get up and go energy. It's pressurized, so it's kind of needs to get stuff done. It's motivated to do stuff. It's sort of on fire there. And that can be challenging because mind is in the future. How do you get stuff done if you're constantly in the future? That can become difficult. But with Mars in Leo, and Moon in Leo, we've got the energy, the emotional backup to carry things out. So we can, at the best case of this conflicted pressure energy, is to get something done that is meaningful for you, tackle something, attack something. That's what the Leo is, Mars in Leo, especially conflicted in a square, but towards whatever you're thinking about in the future. So it can be a really powerful, creative, manifesting energy if you know how to surf it. And one of the answers is not to be stuck in this futurist mindsets, but don't avoid the future. In my opinion, it's about tapping into the future, doing your planning, kind of organizing how you're envisioning getting this stuff done. And so it is much more methodical with this energy. Unfortunately, it's going to make people be a little bit more impulsive with Mars in Leo, Moon in Leo, and even Sun in Gemini with a square invokes the stressed out Gemini, which is getting stuff done, more plates, very motivated, but very adaptable, can be kind of sporadic and can't really go deep on certain projects. But if the projects are right, this is a really good energy to continue to get stuff done. Now, ego is going to perceive, or your identity is going to perceive limitation. That's what the Saturn is. Limitation, contraction, toughness, hurdles. Here, do you think about this other hill to climb? And kind of that urge, that should to climb it. And that can feel very conflicted to ego. Ego can get crushed on this energy, so beware, but it also can be a great motivator to get stuff done, especially with Sun and Gemini, being able to adapt the best. Now, I want you to notice this. Let me darken it a little bit. I want you to notice this T-square. So you've got the red triangle top, and then the Sun square Saturn comes across horizontally. It looks like an A. And I noticed that symbol. I went looking for this symbol. Let me bring it forward. Bring to front. So the history of the A symbol is Aleph, the first letter of the Phoenician alphabet, which consists entirely of consonants. For that reason, it is also called, whatever that word is, abjad, to distinguish it from a true alphabet. But in turn, the ancestor of Aleph may have been a pictogram of an ox head in a certain script. Well, I found that interesting. So there's the bull head in Egyptian. And it just so happens, it confirms that all this energy that we're even talking about, or the pinnacle of the A, is in Taurus. Taurus the bull. Well, then I also noticed that symbol is kind of like that. Not that I'm a pro of that, but that looks like the same symbol that we have. So, take it for what it is. But we're also going to see that in the next few days in a variety of settings, this A symbol. Are symbols that important? Are they that? I don't know. Just pointing that out. I thought it was interesting. All right. So Friday, we have Mercury is just about ready to switch hands over into Uranus, but technically still within a loose conjunction of North Node. So mind still extra focused on the future. Optimism, like hope for a positive future. That's what Jupiter is in a T-square to your power centers of carrying things out. So there's this motivation to get these things done as well. And in Taurus, all in Taurus is the practical way to get it done in a real way. You can even mentally experience this ahead of time with Mercury and Jupiter over the North Node in Taurus. All right, here's our two T-squares. Now the one on the Sun is temporary because this is the first quarter moon. First quarter moon in Virgo conflicted with ego. This happens every lunar cycle. And we have this pressure to get stuff done, basically, because it's Virgo-esque is creating lists and seeing all the things that need to be done, and maybe even perfectionistic about it, or OCD. And so that Sun energy, that ego energy, along with its limitations from Saturn and challenges, can feel humbled, or can feel, if it's the fight or flight, can fight, but in the way out of maybe proving to Saturn that you can get this done, that you can cross, that you can go around, that you can blast through whatever Saturn has for you. But it's not you against Saturn. I want to make sure that's clear. It's what Saturn throws at you is very methodical to what you need now, the next skill that you need in order to be improved, to have better outcomes. So whatever that hurdle is, that challenge, if you open up to it and you can even see it as not a challenge, you can be grateful that it's there so that you are smarter on the other side. You're more aware about this area of life that maybe you didn't have before. So something is better, something stronger in you, something sharper, all that stuff. And then Jupiter, in some of you, it'll be this sort of lack of hope or lack of optimism into the future with Jupiter in a T square and over the North Node. But for others of you, it's a very positive aspect, especially if you don't mind being in the future. A lot of you, future thought is much more anxious naturally. Others of you are much more naturally creative and motivating you to do something now to carry out that future. So for those of you who are that, it's going to be very powerful ability to really get stuff done towards creating the future that you want. So Sunday, the 28th, this is when Sun square Saturn perfects. And so this is going to be probably the most ego limiting alignment for the week. And that happens at 5:46 Central Daylight Savings Time. And that's when Sun is at 6 degrees Gemini 52 minutes. And Saturn is 6 degrees Pisces 52 minutes. So it's a perfect square. And so it's the highest conflict between Sun and Saturn. So be aware of that. Interesting how this is laid out. The Sun is transiting gate 16 of the Rave, and I'm going to talk about the Cynic. And so the Cynic is going to be able to break through narratives, as we'll see in the Rave reading. And so the Sun has this magical ability to, in the implosion of the ego complex, maybe some of you feel almost like ego death, temporarily, of course, maybe weakened, maybe vulnerable for some of you. But on the other side, this can really destroy this energy if you use the energy together. So Sun and Saturn, the Cynic comes out and can bust a lot of narrative bubbles. All right, so I'm going to hammer down Sunday to 28th to be at a critical time for the Great Awakening, that you actually have a role to play in the Great Awakening by using this energy. All right, here we are on Monday, the 29th, and we are 7 degrees between Mercury and Uranus. I'm so excited about this alignment because it's both of my dominant planets based on my zodiacal signs, tropical, of course, Mercury and Uranus. So I'm really looking forward to this, but this can be discombobulating to some people who aren't very well grounded or have some hard aspects to your natal Mercury or natal Uranus. Can be some discombobulating or kind of confusing times, or fast changes on your logic, fast changes towards the way that you carry out your communication, for example. But this energy also provides insights. Uranus is the insights, and it's about collective change. And not that things change really easily with Taurus, but Uranus has been there for 20 degrees now, changing the way that we experience reality through our 5 senses. Your thoughts and desires can change, and very fast changes. And they're going to be associated with the way that you perceive the world, the way that you experience the world, or the way that you value things in the world or value things about yourself. Those will be the biggest changes in applying practical logic, etc. So mind, communication, and change and insight. There could be some big inventions right there on that day. Tuesday, the 30th. Now we're 5.5 degrees away, Mercury and Uranus. We still have a T-square, and a pretty strong T-square still, I'd say. Jupiter, Mars and Pluto, the T-square on the sun is nil. We have now, this is post first quarter moon. So now we are waxing gibbous, so much stronger. The foot is on the accelerator now. This is the biggest phase of that Taurus new moon, most recent Taurus new moon. So you've set some Taurus-based objectives and goals. This is the high time for getting those done. And you want to probably accentuate this time from Tuesday the 30th, especially from Tuesday the 30th to the 3rd of June. This is foot fully on the accelerator, pushing forward and getting stuff done that had to do with your Taurus new moon, the new beginnings. And this is the best time to be carrying those out. Obviously, we still have the emphasis of the future. Look how close Jupiter is now to the North Node. They're both at 3 degrees. So this is a very future-oriented aspect. Normally a trap, but I think it's going to feel like you want it. You want a positive future. So it's going to be more of a yearning in the mind, the wise mind, Jupiter. And you might see for some of you, as you are not afraid of going into the future, you can start to see fortune and synchronicities unlock as Jupiter manifests over the North Node. So you're going to see the synchronicities helping you towards that future and powerful future. And then we have the Grand Cross, not on this chart. This chart is midday, but earlier Wednesday morning, this is when, so let's see here. We've got 3rd. So anyway, got multiple T-squares here, and that's the definition of a Grand Cross anyway. You've got Venus taking over for Mars. Mars is going to drop off this T-square with Jupiter, and Venus is going to take over to be the continuance of the T-square. And then we have, when the alignment's right, we have Mars and Venus still with the oppositions that create the foot of the other side. And then, of course, the North Node and the South Node. On the South Node in the past, we have a powerful waxing gibbous moon, increasing in brightness, going over the South Node. So emotional past comes into this. It's a time continuum, Grand Cross. Jupiter, optimistic future. And so emotional past, optimistic, wise-based future. And some of that is Venus, some of it is Mars. So a lot of passion in both of those, especially as those continue to compress towards each other. We are going to have a powerful alignment there. I don't remember how long it takes to get there. They move roughly at the same speed relative to Earth. But the Grand Cross is going to take us over into June and then stop. So it's less than maybe a 12-hour period, but feels conflicted for most people, feels pressurized, but it feels motivating. It's like supercharged. And one of those outlets is synchronicity, spontaneity of Jupiter and into the future Jupiter. So optimism into the future. All right, we have in the I-Ching, we have no change lines. So that means that the influence is also the same hexagram 3 for the solution. But this is going to be read in terms of what's the energy to expect according to the I-Ching. Well, difficulty at the beginning. This is an entry into the unknown. New things seem to be rushing upon you, and confusion can easily take over. That's one thing that I didn't really talk about, is the potential for confusion at the beginning of the week with Mercury and Jupiter in the North Node. But more importantly, it's towards the end of the week with Mercury conjunct Uranus. That can be very confusing. Challenges lie ahead, but they are challenges you can handle. That is a statement directly from Saturn that says, I'm giving you challenges, but they are not challenges that you can't already handle. You may not feel like it, but you can. And there's an important reason to press through those difficulties, to get stronger, more skilled, etc., to learn more. You may not even be aware of looming change on the horizon. It can be a message to start small and stay focused on the work, regardless of how inexperienced or unsure you may feel. And that's especially given after or through the first quarter moon. The accelerator is starting to be pushed down and work is starting to be pushed out. But you'll see that all that conflicted energy kind of slows it down. Saturn makes it a little bit more difficult. The Chun unchanging is like a cosmic gift you may not deserve, but the universe supports it in some way. Perseverance leads to success. You may not even realize how lucky you have the path cleared before you. That's totally the Jupiter T-square. You may not notice it until it happens. It may be hindsight. So make sure you keep your perspectives looking for the positive, looking for the ways in which the universe is conspiring for you and laying out that red carpet before you. Some of you, it's just a matter of perspective, but it's an important one. So here's the energy graph. The biggest challenge from Sun square Saturn is going to be on Sunday, right smack dab in the middle of our CIRF week. And for the Jupiter T-square, that is a huge energy that's going to slowly start going down over time, especially as we get into the next CIRF week, which is going to be the full moon. It's also going to be Mercury and Uranus conjoined, my guess, as the biggest energy. So now let's go over to the summary slide so we can put to bed the energy report. So this is ego. Ego can get deflated during this week, possibly, but we start the week with 6 freaking squares. So energy doesn't flow very well. It's conflicted and pressurized. The kiln is heating up, and the resulting energy is this. Power dynamics are changing. Fortunate futures are forming. New beginnings are oozing from the cracks in the old way of life. A beautiful grand cross. A lot of people will fear the grand cross, but I call it absolutely beautiful energy if you know how to surf it, because it helps punctuate all of what we talked about, the power dynamics changing and the fortunate futures. And this grand cross carries us over the threshold into June. All right. So that does it for the influence. Let's get back to the solution. And we have the same change hexagram. There is no change hexagram because there was no change line. So hexagram 3, difficulty at the beginning. Now we're looking for solutions, behaviors. Do not let events overwhelm you. As you take the first step, stay calm and ready to persevere. That's also the lunar phase that we're in, waxing gibbous. Well, first quarter and then waxing gibbous. Ask for guidance and support. That's a very Jupiter influence as well, and it's T-square. Gain strength, find courage. Opportunity for rapid development is there. Keep going despite difficulties. That has Sun squared Saturn written all over it. A key challenge at this time is to maintain clarity, avoid lunging at solutions. The caution there is especially earlier in the week when we have the moon going over Mars that is in Leo, that can be very spontaneous and very impulsive, so it's saying avoid lunging at solutions. Needs to be planned and methodical. That eases as soon as the moon gets into Virgo. Do not start a new project or relationship before thinking it through. It doesn't say don't start new projects. It just says make sure you're thinking it through. And you can actually use the Mercury and Jupiter over the North Node and Mercury conjunct Uranus in Taurus. That'll be helpful as long as you know how to handle the future in your mind. And be sure to enlist the advice of experienced people and wise supporters. I put this into our calculator because we're trying to get from the influence, which is tropical, over to the sidereal solution. The behaviors that we want to instill are going to be in the sidereal constellation. This is hexagram 16 of the Rave, and we're going to talk about that. That's the Cynic. And then we have Taurus, sidereal solution. And to be sure, this is on Sunday when the sun goes perfectly square with Saturn. All right. Enthusiasm. This is Rave Gate 16, the great art of enriching life by the harmonic channeling of energy. Absolutely beautiful here. And line 2 is the Cynic. That's where the sun is line 2, the sharpness to burst bubbles. A lot of you are going to love this, especially those who are naturally cynical. This is your week. Self-reliance and the skill to judge objectively any claim regardless of rhetoric. The expression of the skill to judge objectively. Now, the downside risk is the compulsive cynic, whose very cynicism is a source of enthusiasm. Objectivity expressed through cynicism. In other words, not all cynicism is warranted here. Not all bubble bursting is warranted here. But the energy offered, the opportunity offered with the sun, with its square over to Saturn, and maximized on Sunday, is the sharpness to burst ego bubbles. Bubbles of rhetoric as well are in this category. So we have the Cynic has the sharpness, thank you Saturn, to burst rhetoric bubbles. All right, so let's go to our solution slide. And we'll see what behaviors are recommended. Here's our review. We have the I-Ching 3, gain strength, find courage, maintain grit and stamina. This is all a perfect match of the lunar cycle where we are there. Avoid lunging at solutions. If confused, practice patience until clarity presents, and get advice from the wise. And then we have the Rave, which is the sharpness to burst bubbles using the Cynic energy. But not all cynicism is appropriate this week, and not all bursting bubbles is appropriate. So we have to talk about when that's appropriate so that we don't invoke the negative side of this energy. Whoopsie. And then we have Sidereal Taurus, which we've had for a while. And it's going to help us this week because here we go. Imagine combining the stubbornness of Taurus with the Cynic of Rave 16 line 2. So while you are gaining strength and practicing good grit and stamina, might as well blurt out some well-timed, bubble-bursting, precise as a razor blade, objective judgments where appropriate. If enough of this happens collectively, the obvious crumbling of the old narrative will accelerate into our much-awaited Great Awakening. Be mindful that not all cynicism is warranted here, and not all objective judgments will burst bubbles. You'll have to read your immediate intuitive sense to know if your urge towards sharp objective blurts will be helpful or harmful. If intuition is clear with peaceful inner knowing, boldly, in a very Taurus way, belt it out with your pure Taurus dominance. Be the bull with no regrets. This is the week we can accelerate the Great Awakening. So, a couple more things. The mantra that I'm considering most important for myself is I am actively creating my best future now. And there are a lot of things, a lot of skills. So, trusting is in here, especially as my mind goes into the future with Jupiter and trying to ascertain the most wise future that I want or the most optimistic outcomes. I have to have a lot of trust. I have to stay out of fear. That's another one. And I got to hang in there. I have to have grit. And then the other thing that I recommend is using the rune called Fehu. Fehu keywords are about wealth, prosperity, abundance, reward, good health, and what else? And beginnings. I thought that was super interesting. So if you're using this to invoke all those things that I just mentioned, then you would want to take this rune and apply it somewhere. Like I have the runes for this beard, and this is where I put this conjuring energy. So I'll put the Fehu there, and that will hopefully sway the energies towards increased wealth, strengthen psychic ability, attract and improve social relationships, sending a magical working into the invisible world to manifest. It's that last one that's so important for this week. And it's both for the Sun square Saturn and also the Jupiter T squares. There's a big opportunity here. And the doorway could be the 31st in the evening, a grand cross with the head of Jupiter synchronizing your future and making it with much better outcomes, and very Taurus kind of wealth building or value, feeling worthy, etc. So that's the Fehu. And then I also have basically the arrow, the rune with the arrow pointing upwards. That's for the underlying eclipse Aries energy. Oh, all right. What did I forget, everybody? Remind me. Any advice that you guys have, include those down below. And everyone have a great awakening week. And hope the great awakening happens to us all into the near future. Hopefully that Jupiter over the North Node is not a long future, but a very short-term future. We can only hope. All right, everybody, have a blessed week, and we will see you next CIRF.